Right. So, NCIS Sydney, Season 1, Episode 2. So, it starts off with two fishermen. I thought they were buddies, but when he when one of them managed to get a sign as opposed to an actual fish, not only did the big guy tease him, he got angry and decided to fight. So, I'm sorry, what the hell? So, they end up finding a dead body very quickly. And obvious mannequin is obvious. So, then we cut to NCIS headquarters, where both teams bring coffee. Only the Americans bring what Mackie called a double jumbo. That it was the biggest they had. Which kind of, that shows the cultural difference between the U.S. and, well, pretty much anywhere in the world, is that we like shit big. We don't want a regular coffee. We want a double or a quadruple or whatever. Not much of a coffee drinker, so Rosie comes in. JD offers him a double jumbo, claiming he's still working on figuring out what a double jumbo is. Dude, she ordered it from a coffee place in Australia. How do you not know what a double jumbo is? I mean, I don't know. So, Mackie gets a call. I didn't catch what Blue brought. It looked like she brought some food, but I didn't hear what it was. And of course, then they cut to Mackie talking, so you didn't really hear the background. What she was telling Dee is what she brought. So she gets the call, and they go to this crime scene. Evie got this really cool pad, which is just the only purpose of it is to measure someone's gait, to have it in the database, measure the gait, and use that instead of fingerprints to catch people. Okay, fine. Now you know this is going to come in useful, because they wouldn't introduce it if it had no use whatsoever. So you know this is going to come in useful. But for now, she's just annoying Dee. And he asked her about wearing a cap, or she said something about him wearing a cap. And she said that the people who wear caps have given up on their hair. Okay. She's really coming across these past couple episodes as kind of full of herself. Last episode, she basically made a joke about being a player. Now she's talking about how caps are only for people who given up in their hair. Apparently she doesn't drink beer. We found that out. But yeah, she's just, I like her and JD, but at the same time I want to wring both their necks. But anyway, So they go to where the body was found, and Rosie is hysterical. Whenever JD asks him what you got, or how are you, or good morning, or whatever, he has something pithy to say. Today it was he has arthritis, and so we find out that, so they take him back to the headquarters to find out what happened. Okay, it was probably a drowning, and JD's like, things could, people could get into trouble out here very quickly, but does he look like the outdoorsy type to you? In that he wasn't prepared to be in the bush. In the meantime, Evie is watching Dee move, watching him walk, and she asks if he's ever done modeling. Which, fun fact, the actor actually has. So, and then she asks him to walk normally, and he's like, this is how I walk. And he freaks out at every bird call. Now, I realize that there's a lot of dangerous crap in Australia, especially in the bush. But they're birds. I'm not aware of any dangerous birds. I know snakes and alligators and spiders, but not birds. So he's freaking out about birds. So Evie is quite understandably laughing at him. So they all go back to the headquarters, and they're trying to figure out what the hell he was doing there. So they go to JD and Mackie go to where he worked. He was a compliance officer at this main hub, which stored all sorts of gear. And they found out about him and the rapport he had with the people he worked with, or at least what they claim was the rapport. They go back out, and JD comes up with this theory as to what happened, and Mackie's like, nobody likes a compliance officer because they have to be hard asses because, they want to do their job, make sure you comply, which makes sense. So they realize that somebody is lying, because either he's really bad at his job, or they're lying because nobody ever likes their compliance officer. So they go back, and at this point, Blue figures out that she figured out where he died, and it was about an hour from where he was found at some community hall. So Rosie asks if she sent it to the team, and she's like, no. And she's like, this is important. Call the team. Well, let me find out if it's okay to call her, because Mackie doesn't like me. And Rosie was correct that it's not that Mackie doesn't like her, just, she's intense, and you know she's scary, but you can't let her get to you. And so she calls, and then we see them going, Evie and Dee going to the community hall. So they play rock, paper, scissors, which they had a little bit of fun again. with with cultural differences. They there is a fun joke in the US about how in Australia the toilets flush in the opposite direction. So in other words, backwards. So they have fun with it by saying that D is backwards because he says rock, paper, scissors, and they say paper, scissors, rock. Now, whether that's actually true or it's just a joke, I'm going to say it's a joke. But speaking of cultural differences, and a little fun fact as well, going back to when they first drove to the scene, Mackie was going to drive. Unfortunately, she sat on the wrong side of the car because, well, in the US we drive on the right side. In Australia and actually all the Commonwealth countries, they drive on the left. Now, what the fun fact is that she is English. The actress is English. So she knows damn well all about driving on the left side of the street. So she sits down, and even Rosie was like, wait, if you're driving, why are you on this side? You could see it all on his face. And, JD has this smirk. It's like, okay, where to, Captain? And, but back to the present. So, D somehow manages to lose because even though he did paper over rock, she decided to bring out a laser because that's totally how you play rock, paper, scissors. So D was stuck having to crawl under to find what he can find. Now, I'm sorry, but if this was NCIS LA, she would have gone just out of the fact that she's smaller. She's the smallest one there. But apparently, because D is a guest in the country, he didn't want to force her. So anyway, that, and she's the one with the gun. So he crawls under, and you see some indentions in the wood, which when you first look at it, you don't think anything of it because, okay, it's just rotting wood. I mean, God knows how old that thing is. So he's crawling. She does at least give him a flashlight, so he's crawling through, and he finds a phone. And not only does he find the phone, he finds the snake. And so he's freaking out and manages to grab the phone and, get out of there. And he's freaking out. Which is understandable. If this is the most venomous snake on the planet, yeah, I would be freaking out too. So they obviously abandoned the snake. Which makes you wonder, why did they take the snake to begin with? I mean, was its only purpose was to kill the compliance officer and they just left it to its own devices? Which, dude, there is no food there. Okay. So then he goes into the community hall and talks to Evie, and she's looking into the garbage can, very unhappy. And you see two of the birds. Because I skipped over, they went to Natureland and found out that it was broken into. And a bunch of animals were taken. So, to find that these birds are now dead and in the garbage can, okay, what was the point of stealing these birds if you were just going to toss them in the garbage can. And then there was one that lived, a parrot, which ended up causing, trouble for Blue later. So they take everything back to headquarters. And Dee, being the absolute sweetheart that he is, I mean, he has an obvious heart of gold, he took the birds and put them in Rosie's lab, because it might be used as evidence. You didn't want to leave it in the garbage can because it's not garbage. And Rosie's like, yeah, we can keep them here until we figure out what needs to be done with them. And the North Central Wisconsin part of me, where, hunting is very much a thing, was thinking, stuff them. Taxidermy is a thing, especially since, they're dead. I mean, it's horrible. What else are you going to do with them? I mean, they were in the garbage. You can't use them as food. Not anymore. I mean, I guess animal rescue might be able to use them for food. I don't know. But anyway. So then, they decide they're watching the monitors and decide that they need to get a database, because like Dee said, they need a database of gates in order to make her thingy work. So they go back to the warehouse and make everyone walk. So they do that, and while they're doing that, Blue is looking through the phone after she was playing with the parrot. And she specifically said Mackie, and then calling herself a dumbass. I mean, it was very, very easy to understand what she was saying. She was not calling Mackie a dumbass. It was just Mackie, dumbass, and the parrot just went with Mackie, dumbass. And no matter what Blue did, she couldn't stop the parrot from saying that. And she figured out that Lee had a geo-tracker on somebody, on his phone, following somebody. So JD and Mackie go to where the tracker was leading them, and that led them to Tommy. Well, JD lied to Tommy about how there are recordings on Lee's phone about calling his mother, and what he did right before he died, which was a bunch of bullshit. But he got Tommy to open up, and Tommy did the absolute worst thing he could do in a situation like this. He went outside. So it shouldn't come as a surprise what ended up happening next. Somebody shot him. Somebody killed him. Because of course they did. So they're trying to figure out what's happening. In the meantime, Evie and Dee decide to go back to Natureland because maybe somebody saw something, because you case a joint out before you rob it. And so they go to Natureland, and on a whim, Evie takes a picture of the zookeeper's, the head of the, I don't know what you would call it, if it's a conservancy or what. Her gate. And they keep looking, and they find a truck that looked like the van that was used in the robbery. And there's a snake just chilling out in one of the tubes. And I'm just like, well behaved snake. That it's just sitting there, and it's not like, hey, food. No, just sitting there chilling. And they get kidnapped by the lady that they had talked to earlier. So it's not that the joint was cased. It was an inside job. Now, the question is, did she ever care about animals? Or was she always a front for this? That she just got the job in order so they could continue doing this. And that she never gave a crap about the animals to begin with. So she takes them into the shop, and it looks like they're going to be shot. But no, they just discussed what they were going to do. And Mackie and JD realize that Evie and Dee are walking into a trap. And so Mackie just burns rubber. And we already found out when she drove to the warehouse that JD does not like her driving, because she apparently drives like a bat out of hell. And so she was doing the same thing this time, but, she's in an obvious hurry now. Because, want to make sure that they get there before anything happens to Evie and Dee. And so while they're chatting, and it's funny, they sounded like they were talking normally. And it didn't look like they were that far away, but Dee is like, do you hear what they're saying? They're not that far away. How bad is your hearing? But Evie shows him that she has a gun strapped to her ankle, because of course she does. And so Frank, everybody decides they're going to take off. So Frank threatens Dee, and Dee is like, yeah, I've seen war. You don't look like you have it in you to shoot a man when looking at him in the eyes. Because he wanted them to get up, and he's like, no, you can just shoot me right here. I want you to see my face when you shoot me, because I don't think you can do it. Oh, Lee would disagree. Yeah, well, yeah, that's just proving me right, because you couldn't look him in the eye either. He's like, nah, I just don't like snakes. Which still proves Dee's point that you had to have a snake do it instead of you doing it yourself. But he claimed that he can. So it looks like he's going to shoot Dee. Point blank. And instead, he calls to the woman, I cannot remember her name, and she comes in with Mackie. Mackie has her dead to rights. And so Frank starts shooting at him, which, she's getting shot at too. It's like, okay, maybe this little teacher that, he doesn't actually give a shit about her. So they So he keeps shooting at him. It's like, yeah, you guys are outgunned, even though they were trying to tell him that they have the place surrounded. No, they don't. So Dee and Evie scooch so Dee could grab her gun from her ankle holster, and he shoots the aquarium with the snakes. And instead of the snakes attacking Frank or even slithering to Evie and Dee, they're just, chilling. And so that was enough to get JD and Mackie to be able to stop him. They had guns on him. Dee had a gun on him. So, all's well that ends well. But like I said, I really would love to know if this was a front the entire time. So, and I forgot to mention that, before they found out that Dee and Evie were walking into a trap, they were at the warehouse talking with the supervisor, I guess, and the floor manager. And he was showing them what they asked for, and they discovered that Tommy was skimming by using his own weight by staying in the truck, which you saw that. You didn't need to see the tapes of it. They were there when a load was being weighed and Tommy was still in the truck, and they never questioned it then. But Blue figured out that at Lee's apartment was this big board of weights. So they figured out that they're weights. And they go to the warehouse, and it sounded like he was, shocked at what was happening, and that he was going to try and get the information they need. And then this week it was JD's turn to actually run and tackle a suspect. Last week it was, episode 1, it was Mackie. This week it was JD. So that's how they realized, because he mentioned what was going down at Natureland. And that's how they realized that Evie and Dee are in a lot of trouble. So it ends with them at the pier. JD is carrying beer, and Evie is holding a glass of wine. So now we have indisputable proof that she is not a beer drinker. She's a wine drinker. And so they were talking about, just giving each other crap about, who drank the Kool-Aid, because he's wearing the NCIS cap. And I don't know what she said that made him question her. So she asked him about, to ask Dee if he's wearing undies. She had told him a story about her ex-boyfriend, and that he had to get his penis lopped off because of a white-tailed spider. And that's why a lot of Aussie men go commando. Now, I question whether that is a thing. No, I'm not questioning whether these spiders are everywhere, that they're common spiders and that they're everywhere. That I'm not questioning. I'm questioning the story, because she then ask him if he's wearing undies. Oh, you told him the story. Yes. Which makes me think that she's still messing with him. Now, the story could be correct, parts of it. But, the fact that she said that ended their relationship, and it's just weird. So I'm going to say she was just doing that to, see if she could get him to not wear underwear. I don't know. But then, but JD also said something weird about how we just cannot use a person's real name. Now, I didn't catch what he called her. So, I don't know if that's true or if he was, again, taking the piss out of her because he did that earlier when she attempted to drive, and it was, very first driver's lesson level shit. Which, if things are going to not be where you're used to having them, of course, you're going to look like you don't know what you're doing. And so JD was making fun of her. So I wonder how much of what he said is true about the names. But, she's like, what should I do with JD? Well, let's see. You already called him Cowboy last week because, of his ability to shoot. So I'd say go with that. But so she called Lee's mother to let her know, which I can't imagine that can be remotely fun. I mean, JD even said, I guess there's no good time to say that, huh? No, thank you, Captain Obvious. No, there is never a good time to tell someone that their kid died. So, after that, she joins them. And, they're having a good time. Apparently, there's now a double taser. It's just, okay, Rosie. So, everybody's having a good time, and then the parrot is there. And it's still saying, Mackie dumbass. But this time, even she's laughing, and I do not understand why. Because I realize that, she's a bit of a hard ass, and she wasn't happy with Blue at the time because of the parrot. But I'm sorry, even if she knows that that's not what Blue said, why are you laughing? Anyway, so that's how it ended. Let's see if there's any other parts that I wanted to bring up about this episode. All I can say is that JD said last episode that he was a teacher. What kind of teacher incessantly mocks someone for, the cars being completely different than what they're used to? I'm sorry, huh? Outside of that, I think I've covered everything I wanted to this episode. So with that, I will see you guys in the next one.